microphone so that I will be more presentation.
I will mute myself also.
Okay. So thank you very much to Anna and Fala for inviting us today. We will be the two of us, me and Alessandro, that will join us later after this introduction at 3 p.m. And of course, we will speak for the entire group. So today you will see just a series of projects, a very brief introduction, quite an overview of our production as a group that doesn't represent a unique body of work, but rather a series of exploration that doesn't have the ambition to define the one unique and coherent path, but the aim is more define and magnifying collateral histories. So the first history that we want to start is this one. We always like to introduce ourselves with him. He's Dick Fosbury. Basically, he's the inventor, as you probably know, of the first back first technique. And for us, it doesn't represent an aim to the progress, but rather a different way to see the obstacle with a lateral approach. So it's the one from whom we stole the name, and it represents, I would say, a metaphor for us. So our structure was of course, looking to the radical experience from the 70s, we thought that for ourselves the best way to approach the market was the one of the collective. So we define ourselves as a collective of design and research rather than a proper office. And then you can see here we were a larger group that we try in a way to elaborate this form as a way to oppose a labor market that at that time seems to reject our ambition and our desires. So even if we start working together from the university, as you probably are now, we formally began our experience together with the manifesto. That is the one that you can see here. It's not a proper one. It was intended in the form of a fanzine, printed together with the kebab menu. The name was Roark, so it was a tribute to another character that for us was very crucial and, how to say, dear at the beginning, that is Howard Roark, this young and promising architect that doesn't want to compromise with the establishment. And so we dedicate to him our manifesto. That was printed and financed, let's say, with from his very brilliant editor that was our favorite kebab shop close to the university. So this gives us the possibility to really launch ourselves in this collective dimension. We were slightly a larger group at the beginning, chatting and having meeting through Skype and so on. And this is the final composition of the group. So we are 5. We were divided between Rotterdam and Milan, and we are happy that before coronavirus, actually, even Giacomo and Claudia from Rotterdam could join us. So after 5 years, we finally are all together in the same city. And well, today, as I anticipate, I will just go through a series of very different work, one to the other, to have an overview of what we do as a collective. So the first project that I want to introduce is Potlatch, that I am happy to see that Anna chose it to launch the lecture of today. And Potlatch is a research project that basically reflect on the condition of immaterial workers. So it was in that period, all of us were spread into different offices and different studios. So for ourselves, the idea and even the urgency was try to reflect about our condition, the condition that we share with our friends and and colleagues. And the issue was exactly what to do with all the production waste. And when I say waste, I'm intending digital production that usually are at the center of a studio daily routine. So what to do with all these very huge production of files, digital work, materials that every day are under process in an architectural firm. What we did basically was to launch a call for materials, asking to architect students and trainees to send us discarded and forgotten piece of files, absolutely just architectural drawings, so piece of AutoCAD or other vectorial drawings that you have produced inside your experience. And the idea behind this, collection of material was of course to really gather together all these scraps, all these wasted material, and share them through a collective ritual. That's why we name the project Potlatch as this Native American ceremony. The project was, of course, based on another kind of economy, so an economy free of charge, in which we had the sole role to curate this accumulation. And it was really impressive at that time because we received so strange materials, and we discovered that really people during trainee or during daily office work really redraw or draw the most strange topics. And we received files from really all over the world. And basically we recompose all these drawings. You can see lions, Italian politicians, super small bacteria in one unique composition that has the purpose to sublimate all this crap and sublimate and make a new dignity to the human condition itself. This is this is just half of the entire drawing that were like 12-meter drawing. And it became then part of an installation for Adocracy Athens. That was an exhibition that we had in Athens like 5 years ago, together with a publication that tried to recompose the entire work. Going from research to urban project, we gone with Arbore. It's a project for the city of Porto. The brief was very specific, and it asked to ourselves to work on Compagnia Aurificia. That was, sorry Anna for my pronunciation, that were a former industrial plant producing metal, undergoing a state of abandonment. As a first approach, we try to enlarge a little bit our point of view from the specific side of the brief to the entire neighborhood. See a piece of city that was completely undergoing a shrinking process. So everything was under abandonment. And looking to this urban plot from above, we were extremely fascinated by the presence in the urban fabric of these green and amazing inner cores that for us had a great potential. So what we did was to imagine not a linear process, but a multi-layer strategies that you can see sum up here in the introductory panel of the competition. and even pushing these azulejos graphics, since we are not very afraid about cliché. We focus on the compagnie Orificio, try to answering on with this reuse and refunctioning in terms of art center as required from the brief, but enlarging the view. And trying to use all the series of abandoned skeleton that we find around with the different kind of activity addiction, using them just as a very just as passages to connect from one side to the block to the other and work on the porosity of the site. So this is the first this is the short-term view in which you see all the side of intervention, and this is the long term in which we work really on the potential of this green cores, and we maximize it. Here at Zoom, so you can see better the evolution and what we draw. And this is the image that we recompose. Going again with another city and another competition, it was a project that we made for the Venice Architecture Biennale. The site in question was Venice, in particular Porto Marghera, that you see here in the picture. That is an area 3 times bigger than Venice itself, and it is one of the most polluted area in Italy, but even in the entire Mediterranean area. The brief asks just to imagine the future of the area in a mix between a towerscape, let's say a New Yorkese attitude, and with a post-production city. We really reflect on the opportunity to mix together inhabitant, so a new kind of urban settlement with this former condition, and we really go for a very simple solution as a strategy. So that was building a wall to really make an enclosure for the entire industrial city and leave it to a strong land reclamation project. So you can imagine like an urban jungle, an urban forest, very dense and completely not accessible to human presence, with inside some energetic plants or some function that really doesn't require human presence, like, for example, data center. And we come up with these pieces of drawing. So again, one unique drawing to solve and try to tell the story of an entire strategy. Here you can see the different part of it, focusing on the wall that you see drawn in white, the green forest inside the industrial plan, and the pink city outside, the city of Marghera itself. And here you can see the recomposed figure of the drawing, in which you have the city of Marghera on the left, this Jurassic data inside the industrial plan with the data center and solar panel, and the monumental Venice in the background. What we did even was to try to transfer this kind of really how to say, comparted kind of strategy in a model that basically is a drawing in 3D, in which we select 10 different territorial sections to really focus the relation between inside and outside the wall, and interpretate this sequence of pattern. Our favorite one was the green one that we was inspired by the Pratone, and you can see here a view of the model from above, in which again you see the wall that divided the forest. In blue you have the energetic plan and the existing city outside it, with this series of new function in white that we apply as a border to make a distance between the industrial plan and the ancient city, the former city of Marghera. Changing the scale again, now we are on one building, so we speak about a building renovation for the Museum of Turin. It was the Historical Museum of Nature and Science, and again the brief was to work with the open space of the museum and on the circulation in order to make it more liable and more accessible to the public. So the intervention were very simple even in this occasion. And if you imagine to stroll from outside to inside, we see an operation in the entrance in which we present the new graphic, the new communicative project of the museum, the reception with a very just furniture intervention, the Fritz bar, so a completely new space that we added in the left wing of the museum, and in which we start introduce some materials from the collection, so this natural attitude, the bookshop and the laboratory for students, and here the core of our intervention, so this couple of monumental catalog, one for animals and one for plants, that serves to bring new life inside the courtyard and have a permanent activity of the museum, even separated from the museality, from the opening of the museum itself. So the idea was to bring citizens inside this, how to say, open air Wunderkammer, in which you can admire and have a glimpse of the content that are exhibited inside the museum, but just frequenting and just attending a public surface. And in this central perspective, you can see the relation with the new addiction of the natural catalog inside the ancient courtyard. Another renovation project that for us was quite crucial is the new prisons for Milan. That was exactly a competition for ideas made on the former fair of the city, Pavilion 1 and 2. That is a building that were subject of many different kind of speculation. Most of them meant to transform it in a shopping mall, so in commercial activity, and absolutely the most extravagant one and ambitious, if you want to say, is to transform this huge building into the stadium of Milan Football Club. Inside this panorama, our proposal was far less glorious, let's say, and as in the title, we proposed to transform the fair into the prison of the city, reflecting especially on the terrible state of which the prison is undergoing now. And so to soften a little bit this strong message that we had in mind, we decided to go a little bit beyond the traditional communication method that we use in architecture inside our discipline, and we propose to collect the entire project into a fake newspaper, and we derived the graphic from a very famous Italian newspaper that is La Lettura. So the result was this one. In the first page, we introduce the topic with a national overview, so presenting the current state of all the prisons in Italy, for which every time that you see a dot, it represents a prison on the territory. And for each of it, we try to synthesize a series of data. So, for example, the number of the prisoners, the number of the cells, which is the suicide rate inside the prison, and even which is, for example, the relation between the square meters available for every prisoners and the square meters that a pig have from the should have from the Italian government, even understanding that very often a pig has much more square meter available than a prisoner. We followed the project with this cross section that showed the physicality of the intervention and how we work on the existing building without adding basically any new space. So it was a very cost-effective proposal, and we remark here the fact that after it seems quite utopic, it was very pragmatic. And finally, just a series of images that elaborate a little bit which was the inner environment inside the carcere, the prison. Okay, so now we pass to another scale again, and we present TEUR. TEUR is a strategy for an entire city, the city of Leeuwarden, placed in the north of the Netherlands. And Leeuwarden is a Dutch city that was selected for being the European Capital of Culture in 2018. So it's a beautiful context that seems actually without problem at a first glimpse. The competition was launched inside the frame of Europan, so it was a European competition. And the problem that they underlined in the brief was a strong request of new accommodation for this little town to and the amount of new accommodation that the city would need for the 2018, and it was the year of the Capital of Culture. And the situation that we found in Leeuwarden was again very similar to the one of Porto, so a shrinking city in which all the young guys and all the younger strata of the population live. So we start again with a very traditional mapping, and we make here the most provocative hypothesis. So mapping for every vacant space, new potential accommodation. So every time that you see a little dot is a potential new accommodation, and when you see the black area is a vacant shop. So in this mix between potential accommodation and vacant shop, we elaborate our strategy, our strategical plan, mixing up so these two dimensions. The idea for which you can share part of your private residence and that you can temporarily transform all the vacant spaces of the city center into temporary hostel. Of course, we did it with a great and accurate evaluation of all the sharing platform and all the renting platform that are currently on available. Our idea was basically to imagine a kind of communal communal Airbnb spread around all the city center, in which citizen and shop owner collaborate to host all the guests and all the tourists that would join the European Capital of Culture. So here you see a visualization of a piece of neighborhood in which you have all the ground floor that perform these temporary activities. And here in the close-up, you see clearly the difference between the rectangle in blue, that for us was this private cell, so the sacred bedroom, and the public activity that the space could offer during the day. The applicant was really even the one to try to give a price to those kind of extra activity that one person or one shopper could offer, and synthesize them through degree of intimacy. So here just a visualization of the proposal. And since with this project we won the first prize, the foundation that was the head of the competition gave us the possibility to develop a second phase of the project, try to think and to really design this kind of object for the fast colonization of the vacant spaces. So a series of cabinets, then you can place into, sorry? That you can place, that you can place in your shop and then colonize it. Through this competition, we start to elaborate different series of research and consideration, and one of the most important is this theoretical reframe that we call environments of resistance for social individuals, in which we really try to focus in theoretical terms, which is the relation in the current domestic environment between private and public, and which is the space and how all these kind of rental platform and digital world are changing the way in which we live in our domestic environment. Facing basically two main trajectory. One is the one for which every offices and every public space tend to be like an house, and the other tendency is the one that all the houses tend to be all the same in Copenhagen as in Singapore. So a generic taste, quite simple and very easy to communicate, that is covering all the domestic landscape really in the entire world. And we associate this kind of tendency both to the rental economy that is pushing the fact that you can have really the same interior environment in different contexts of the world, but even IKEA that more than interpret our taste is the one that drive our taste with a very economic and easy to apply kind of solution. In this frame, we try to even reflect for an alternative. So look for something different, something that not can go against, but just can represent a different point of view. And we come out with this that we call environment. This for us is an environment. So is the bed of the Playboy director that was really adapted to host all the activity of his daily routine. Are a series of objects between the piece of furniture and the room itself that are imagined really to answer to the precise desire of the occupant, that are the same that Emilian Bast described, more or less the same that Emilian Bast described in the introduction of Italy New Domestic Landscape, as environment then can be open enough to be inserted in every house, but public enough to collect a series of, recollect a series of precise rituals. So we start to filling a catalog of this specific dimension from Middle Age to nowadays, with a strong focus on the prolific 70s. And we had different series of exhibition on this project, always trying to implement this catalog of environment of resistance, until the point we decide to we can extrapolate and really unclear some how to say some qualities of this object that are, for example, anthropometric and not generic, that are monumental and not cost effective, that are bulky and luxury and not market friendly. So our environment, or we can say objects that are designed with the sole purpose to accommodate the idiosyncrasies of its client. And so after this catalogation and huge phase of research, we decide to design our capsule collection, selecting and pick up just 7 of the really infinite typology that we have in the catalog, like a conversation pit, a bath unit, a deprivation tank, a bed that seems like a tube, a study pod, halfway between a game pod and a former studiolo, a prie-dieu, so a private space like a private chapel, and a boudoir. Until we realize a prototype of one of them, mixing up the service unit, the bath unit, and a bed space inside. These are 2 visualizations of it. So from a competition to a research, a theoretical framework to fix some of the content, to an exhibition. Je Prie Amour is the first exhibition that we imagine as aftermath of environment of resistance. We were invited in Chicago Biennial in 2017, and we try to really focus again on this contemporary domestic condition, choosing to work with a precise target that is the YouTuber, the one of the YouTuber. That is a category that is pretty much cut out from the architectural debate, but that for us it's extremely interesting because representing a condition that actually nowadays we are all performing in quarantine time, but is the completely overlap of bedroom and workspace, for which the table become really the recording room and even the working station inside this for all these categories. So we look for a precedent in the history, and we found it in the masterpiece of Studiolo di Federico da Montefeltro in Urbin. It has, as I already said, is a studiolo, so it's a space completely inlaid in wood, that was meant and designed to represent the personality of the Duke in a way that was very far away from the reality. He depicted himself as a man of litera, while he was just a warrior. Here you can see a sharp confrontation between one of the most famous YouTuber and Federico da Montefeltro, that in a way we think and we interpret it as an antesignano of this kind of category, and we start to elaborate the story of our character. So it is a YouTuber, is very young, and he's a girl. She lives in a creator hub, and our mission for the project was representing one-to-one his room, trying to even insert all the characteristics of a YouTube space, so a precise workspace in which you perform your activity. The result was this one. So a drawing in 1:1 scale that recombines 7 different perspectives exactly, and as in the studiolo of Federico da Montefeltro, you enter in one room to discover a completely three-dimensional view. And really working on this historical reference, we fill the space with a huge amount of object, personal amenities, details that could tell about the personality of our character. So here you see a central view of the studiolo, the proper studiolo, the bed that we decide to do as a lit close, and the library with all the series of books and personal objects that describe our character. Here you can see, yeah, a series of them, really trying to interpret our case studies. And from this side, you can see the relation between the interior and the exterior that in the same way try to put a view on the Chicago panorama, focusing on the contemporary version of the squirrel that is a cat with the avocado. More recently, we moved from competition to exhibition, and the last one that we curate is for Milano Triennale of Milan. The challenge was pretty interesting for us because it was the first time that one municipality invite us to curate an exhibition that has the aim to share urbanistic and very specific content from the discipline to a wide public. So our approach was really let's say simple. We define a series of devices and each of them communicate a precise message. So here you can see a curtain with this graphic. We produced together with the graphic designer a video that tell about the story of the transformation of Milan, a map describing all the quartier, the 88 quartier, a series of graphics that help the public to focus on which are the main activity of the municipality on the city of Milan. And here, that is our really own production, interactive part area of the exhibition in which every user, every citizen that was visit the public could have an idea of which could be the series of transformation for very critical areas of the city. So, for example, here you see a series of collages that we produce in order to show them which are the possibility for a square, a parking lot, a station, an abandoned building, or an ex-industrial site. And it was really interesting because we saw that even if the public was absolutely generic, from children to old guy, we can see they have fun with this kind of sliding instrument. Here in Verde Prato, that is another exhibition, we more or less had the same task. So trying to produce an exhibition and making connection some content from the PGT, that is the plan of government of the territory, and present them inside an art museum to a generic public. So the idea here was to not to use just single devices to fill the space, but try to imagine one unique object, like a scenic machine that can host all the different content, presenting the three sections. that were like ecology, reuse, and going public. And here you can see an overview of this long scaffolding machine. Yeah, I don't know if we have time. I hope so. The last.
Can continue.
Can I, Anna? Because yeah, I didn't check the time at the beginning. Okay. I'm sorry if I speed up a lot, but since we have half an hour, we try to concentrate all the projects. So a lot of slides and a few notes for each. Well, the last project that I want to introduce is again a research one. It's called In Computo. And it is a research that deal with this artifact. So unfinished public buildings in Italy. Here we are in Giarre, and it is the place in Sicily when the story actually started. It's a small town of 18,000 inhabitants, in which we have this abandoned and unfinished polo stadium with more than 25,000 seats. So we see a very democratic polo stadium. And in the same city, we have even a multi-purpose center that actually seems like an amphitheater. Ludothek, yeah, that we call in Italian Bambinopoli, so a kind of kindergarten in a very brutal appearance that was meant to host babies and child while mothers and women of the city were at work. And it was, if you imagine, that was built in the 70s, it was quite an avant-garde model for being in Sicily, but it remains absolutely unfinished. A swimming pool that the legend want that it was too short to be finished. So for following the regulation, you should have 33 meters, and here the tub is just 32. And so that's why they stop the work and they leave it unfinished. But more probably, actually, we know that the construction, the builder was just in bankrupt, so it was a failure. Then we have a flower market, since Giarre, this place in Sicily that I was introducing, it's very famous to flower cultivation and fruit cultivation. And what is absolutely paradoxical from this building is that here you basically seems an underground space, like a parking lot for hosting flower market, but the original project was this one. So basically a version update of the Circo Massimo. And it's quite interesting because they submit this amazing building and then they realize just the underground flower market. If we had to try to trace a little bit the origin of how we start speaking about unfinished buildings in Italy, public one, we had to deal with this red puppet. Striscia la Notizia is one of the most famous and popular TV program that is still ongoing in TV every night at 8 p.m, so dinner time. A lot of Italians follow him going to visit unfinished buildings. So from 1992, the Gabibbo, that is the name of the red puppet, start a sort of catalogation and mapping of this unfinished building. And of course, the aim was a strong denounce of this extremely big waste of money and public resources on this artifact. And then, so after 12 years, a group of artists decide to pick up this Gabibbo heritage and make a project more consistent one. They call it Incompiuto Siciliano. This is the group of artists, Alterazioni Video, 5 gentlemen that you can see here in the images. And start to transform these TV services into a proper catalog. So a user content website in which everybody could denounce and could add his proper building and put it on the map. So it was a bottom-up strategies to try to rebuild a phenomenon and to arrive to have a complete view of this. After 2013, with Mario Monti, the situation changed again, because for the first time, together with the Gabibbo and with a group of artists, even the Ministry of Transportation finally put attention on this huge phenomenon. And in this moment, we join together with Alterazioni Video the project, and we work together on this publication. So the work that they did for 10 years become a book, and let's say we divided ourselves, since every time that we work with the artist, they do the great and funny job. So they were on tour for 1 year, visited more than 300 sites in all the region for really a huge amount of kilometers, and make more than 200 photographs. We selected together the series of the Incompiutos to take photos, because while they were on tour, we were on Google Earth, trying to really fix in the territory and geolocalize each by each this artifact. We selected more than 1,000 unfinished work, and we geolocalized almost 700 of them. Here, yeah, you have a brief summary of our atlas and catalog, in which you have 96 works in all the Italian peninsula that cover more than 2,000 hectares. And this is the final image that we produce all together. As you can see, even removing the geographical borders of the nation, you can clearly see the shape of the Italy. And in particular, from Rome to down, you see that really the density of these public unfinished buildings is pretty much impressive. These are some pictures of the book. It was composed by a manifesto. So again, a series of sentence and frame that can give you instrument to read this phenomenon as a new style. Without being too much provocative, we state that the Incompiuto is the most important architectural style in Italy after the Second World War. Then you have this photo atlas of 106 unfinished buildings and the environment in which they are inserted. Then you have a series of regional map, that bring up a completely hidden and new kind of Italian geography, for which you have every little town that is interested from Incompiuto put in the map at the same level and degree of a regional capital, for example. So a new kind of geography that give you another impression and a new perception of the Italian territory. And yeah, a final diary that is a travel diary that we filled together with Alterazioni Video. In the previous in the first part of the book, then we collect a series of very important essays made by different kind of contributor with which we discuss the topic of in computo as an architectural style, and they help us in a way to really give consistency and make more consistent this kind of quite controversial definition. And we share content from architectural historian like Biraghi to anthropologists like Marco G, to, for example, Antonio Ricci, that was the director of Striscia la Notizia, so the director of the TG satirical. And why for us as a collective and as a group in computo is so important? Because it represents a very impressive challenge in terms of architecture for its dimension, because it's really a wide, huge spread phenomenon. For the function, because we have such a different function inside the catalog, more than 110, and you cannot imagine to apply and solve to all these buildings the same strategy or the same solution. For the process, because all these artifacts are the results of very complex and controversial relation between the territory and the politician. For the property, for the attribution, that means consider that every kind of these buildings or this infrastructure or piece of infrastructure is always divided between region, nation, and municipality. So it's very difficult to find and to interpret who is the man to which you have to talk. And for all these reasons, they really represent a very big challenge. And for the oblivion, for the fact that they are in such a far away and distant places from city center and from communities, that the majority of them are completely forgotten from both municipalities, politicians, and even communities. Here a series of just beautiful comments and articles that in a way shows the success of the publication, the book, and the final output that In Computo had, that is a very successful joint venture, relation between Virgil Abloh, that probably you know is the director of Louis Vuitton, and Alterazione Video. He decided to name his collection In Computo, and so he worked with the artist with this green screen and fake background to present the pre-fall collection. What is really funny is that after 10 years that they work on this project and 5 years that we joined this project, after just one month, Virgil Abloh registered the name In Computo as his own brand, really stealing more than 10 years of work. No, but it's very interesting because again, the project make another jump from art to architecture, and to architecture to fashion shows and fashion in general. So we think that it was really important in the term of, in the sense of spreading the In Computo style around the communities. So these are other pictures, and just a couple of images from the last exhibition in which we participate in Triennale that I show you because it was closed just really 7 days after the opening, and so basically anybody could see it. It was on exhibit, on show from the end of February till March, but unfortunately it was closed almost soon. So yeah, these are some images. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your presentation. It was for sure for everyone that is assisting very enlightening about your work. And I must say that all the time what fascinates me the most is in a world that all the images, like, people spend 2 seconds on them and then they move forward. In yours, it really makes people like spend a lot of time in each of them and like analyzing, and every time you go closer you find something even more interesting and even deeper. So I think that's an amazing achievement nowadays. Thank you very much for everything. All the people that are assisting to the conference won't join our critics, but at least they got an overview about your work, and we'll meet our students in 1 hour and a half. 1 hour and a half.
Okay, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I hope that it was not too fast, and I mean, too dense. We tried to summarize everything, so
it was a bit longer, but it was...
Yeah, because I didn't check the time in which we start. Sorry if I was too long.
Not a problem. Well, people stayed, so that's a good sign.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
See you later.
See you.
Oh.
Oh, thank you. Ciao.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed. And we won't have time for...
Okay, I don't know if there are questions or we can postpone later some comments.
Well, my students, if they have questions, they can ask you in the evening.
Because, okay, super.
And if someone else wants to make a question?
No, it's not a question, just to say that I was in a library in Bologna in February, and I found your book in computer, and I really fell in love with it, and I really want to buy it, but I just I'm like non abbastanza soldi.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, too.
Of course, we try to ship one copy to every university so that everybody can see it. But in terms of selling, unfortunately, you have to deal with our editor, and so we can.
It wasn't so expensive. It's just like a personal money problem, but it was really, really nice to discover it and really nice to meet you now. Really
Thank you.
nice.
Thank you. I'm very happy with this.
Any more questions?
How are you, Veronica?
Hey, I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I just passed by now.
Okay, I cannot see you.
True.
Well, Philip will join us also this
Hey,
evening.
ciao. I see Giacomo here connected, not Alessandro. And then King of the Divan. That is a very amazing title. How are you, Felipe? Ciao.
Who is the king of the divan?
No, I don't know. It's a mystery. It's not one of us. I think one of your students, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I also don't know. Well,
but are you in the office?
I'm not.
Okay. Okay, you are divided.
Anna is 5 meters above me right now. Anna is here.
Okay, perfect. No, we are all spread and divided. Yeah, we are all in our houses. Yeah, the 5 of us spread. Yeah, it's very funny because Giacomo and Claudia just come back a couple of months ago, and now again on Skype as before Christmas. So, but we are all good.
Well, that's good to hear. So let's all meet after lunch. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much.
Okay.
See you.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.